Ask anyone under the age of 10 what their favorite Jewish holiday is, and I suspect the answer will be unanimous. Hanukkah. I mean, there are 8 nights of presents, infinite donuts and fried potato pancakes, brightly glowing menorahs, dreidels to spin, and did I mention 8 nights of presents? Of course Hanukkah is a big winner with kids. But the message, the real message, is one that's very much for adults. And it starts with understanding the true story of Hanukkah. Let's go back over 2,000 years ago, to the year 167 BCE, when the land of Israel was ruled by a Greek king named Antiochus. The Greeks, who had been in control since the time of Alexander the Great, had generally been tolerant rulers, permitting the Jews to practice their religion so long as they didn't cause any trouble for the empire. However, Antiochus believed that for there to be true unity within his domain, everyone needed to practice the same faith. He issued a decree forbidding many core Jewish practices, including the teaching of Torah, observing Shabbat, and the circumcision of baby boys. He took over the temple and converted it into a Hellenistic shrine, complete with a great big statue of Zeus at the center. Some Jews went along with this new policy, eager to fully blend into the Greek culture that they saw as the most sophisticated in the world at the time. Others, however, resisted forced assimilation and fought back in the name of religious liberty. The revolt against Antiochus broke out in a village near Jerusalem called Modi'in, where a family of priests organized themselves into an army that they called the Maccabees. The Maccabee army was tremendously successful. Within 3 years, they had chased the Greeks out of Jerusalem, restoring Jewish sovereignty for the first time since the Babylonian conquest over 400 years earlier. When the Maccabees entered into the temple, they removed all the statues, scrubbed it all down, and rededicated it for Jewish worship. The word in Hebrew for the dedication of a building is Hanukkah, which gives us the name of the holiday we still celebrate in their honor. At the center of the temple, near the altar, was the menorah, this beautiful golden candelabrum that was always kept lit as a symbol of God's constant presence in the space. In today's synagogues, we hearken back to this menorah through the Ner Tamid, the eternal light that's kept burning above the ark. When the conquering army went to go relight the menorah, they found only one little jar of oil, barely enough to burn for a day. The menorah in the temple could, after all, only be lit with the finest extra virgin olive oil, and making more of that took a week. Yet they lit it anyway, and miracle of miracles, that little jar of oil lasted for 8 days, enough time to make more oil and to keep the light shining. Today, in memory of this miracle, we light the menorah for 8 nights and set it in the window to shine out for all to see. We start with 1 candle the first night, and each night we add an additional candle, until on the final night of Hanukkah, we have a menorah full of light. We also remember that miraculous oil by frying all sorts of treats, from potato latkes to jelly donuts, until we've personally ingested enough oil to keep a menorah lit, not just for 8 days, but maybe more like 80. There's just one tiny catch. The story of the little bit of oil that burned for 8 days, well, it doesn't actually appear in the book of Maccabees at all. It doesn't show up in the writings of ancient historians like Josephus, or in the earliest discussions of the holiday of Hanukkah by the rabbis. In fact, the story doesn't appear until hundreds of years later. It turns out that just like a certain red-suited, heavy-set gentleman fond of climbing down the chimneys of Christian boys and girls and associated with a different midwinter holiday, the Hanukkah legend of the light is just that, a legend. Now don't be too sad though. The story of the birth of this legend actually reveals something deeper about the true miracle of Hanukkah. The part of the story they don't tell you in Hebrew school is that while the Maccabees made great freedom fighters, they were lousy government administrators. They quickly became weak incompetent, and corrupt. Within a century, their ineptitude would lead directly to their defeat by the Romans and the end of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel until the 20th century. The Jews would rise up twice against the Romans, each time hoping to free themselves from foreign domination, just as the Maccabees had done against the Greeks. "Remember the Maccabees!" was their rallying cry. But the Romans were much, much more powerful, and both uprisings fail terribly. After these disastrous revolutions against Rome, the rabbis, who were the newly minted leaders of the Jewish people, recognized that there was no way that we were going to defeat our current enemies through military might. Instead, they taught, we need to focus on developing spiritual strength, on holding on to our identity despite terrible persecution, on letting our little light shine against a great darkness and refusing stubbornly to go out. Get it? The persistent light of the Hanukkah candles is not about the oil at all. It's a metaphor for us. We're still here. We're burning bright. We're not going anywhere. That's why we put the menorah in the window. It's to publicize a miracle, but not of a little bit of oil lasting for longer than it should have a long time ago, but of a small people that continues to thrive even to this day. And that's why we do it at the darkest point in the winter, to show that our inner light is stronger than any outside force, that nothing that's ever been thrown at us has the power to extinguish it, and nothing ever will. Hanukkah truly is a season for celebrating miracles. Whether it's the miracle of a little bit of oil burning for 8 days, or the miracle of a little people persisting through a changing, often hostile world, or the miracle of sitting back and watching your kids unwrap their presents with so much delight and feeling very blessed. Now, if you'll excuse me, all of this talk of latkes and donuts, it's making me hungry.
Yay, nay, nay, yay, nay, yay.